I hope you're having an amazing day. The sourcing patterns around the world are changing ever since the pandemic. China used to be the textile dominator of the world. Today, most businesses are looking at other countries to source from, like Bangladesh, Vietnam, India, etc. One such country with a growing sourcing demand is India, a strong industrial culture, and is the most preferred country for textile and apparel sourcing next to China. The textile and apparel industry in India and sourcing by global retailers to India is expected to have an annual increase of 12%. The size, spread, and depth of the Indian textile and apparel industry has enhanced the sourcing opportunities to India to a considerable extent. Textile and apparel sourcing plays a major role in the development of the country's economy too. Today, we're going to be talking to you about Global Textile Sourcing Scenario around the world and where India stands in it. Let's first try to understand how global sourcing actually works. Global sourcing is the key step to sourcing goods and services from international markets across geopolitical boundaries. It aims to exploit global efficiencies such as low-cost skilled labor, cheap raw material, and other economical factors like tax breaks and low trade tariffs. There are various advantages as well as disadvantages to it, and recently the industry is experiencing structural change wherein market share is moving from earlier dominated developed countries like the US and the European Union to destinations like China, South Asia including India, Bangladesh and Vietnam. These developed countries are currently facing challenges on the consumption side due to an ongoing slowdown in the economic growth in the regions, while on the other hand, countries like China, India and Southeast Asian countries are experiencing growth. Since we're talking about various countries now, let's do a quick roundup of some of the top countries in textile export. China. It is the largest manufacturer and exporter in the world with an export turnover of 266.41 billion USD. The factors driving the industry are low-cost production, raw material quality, industrial structure, modern high-tech machinery, label development, and work process in domestic consumer and global market. The next country is India. The textile and apparel industry in India is among the world's largest producers and exporters. India's textile industry has been broadly classified into two segments. The first being the unorganized sector, which consists of handloom, handicraft and sericulture, which are operated on a small scale while practicing using traditional tools and methods. The second is the organized sector, which uses modern machinery and techniques which lead to economies of scale. For example, higher the production, lesser is the manufacturing cost. India has an export turnover of $37.11 billion. The next country is Bangladesh. In recent decades, Bangladesh has emerged as a powerhouse for apparel manufacturing. The country's strengths are low-cost labor and vast workforce. Advanced technology and high-quality products have attracted many major global retail brands to Bangladesh. The country is leading a textile export with a turnover of almost $38.73 billion. Moving on to Vietnam. The textile industry of Vietnam has benefited producers and buyers to diversify their supply chains. This is backed by its low-cost labor as well as industry focus on specialization, modernization and increasing value addition. With an export turnover of $37.93 billion, Vietnam is in the top 4th global exporter of textile and apparel. Another interesting country is Turkey. The textile and apparel industry of Turkey has an important role in the world textile trade with the capability to meet high standards and a broad range of products. Turkish production and exports of the industry have shifted from low value added commodities to high value added manufactured items and fashionable goods. The export value of the Turkish textile industry has reached $27.56 billion. Moving on to the United States of America. The United States is a global competitive manufacturer as well as exporter for textile, raw materials, fabrics, yarns, apparel, home furnishing, and other textile-related products. The United States has an export value of $27.14 billion. While these are general numbers, the state of the industry keeps on changing. Fashion's interconnected global value chain has been severely disrupted, with suppliers moving into distress after the pandemic. With this, it has also posed certain advantages for India as well. The Indian textile and apparel industry provides direct employment for 45 million people, making it the second largest provider of employment after agriculture in India. In overall positioning, India holds one of the top positions with almost a total of 5% of global share in the export of textile and apparel. And these have not only made the country a significant contributor to the world numbers, but has benefited the country itself. Certain factors that have led to the uproar of the Indian textile industry is, firstly, the geopolitical issues. Amidst India-China standoff, there has been some good news for the Indian garment manufacturing industry. Certain percentage of sourcing apparels has shifted to India from China. As India has a significant edge over the sourcing countries, especially Bangladesh and Vietnam, in terms of the raw materials available. With the escalation of the US-China trade war, nations importing raw materials like yarn, filament, as well as fabric from China have a high risk of exposure to future rounds of US taxes, hence making India a good substitute for their sourcing needs. The next is Foreign Direct Investment Act. The textile and apparel sector in India has one of the most liberal investment policies for foreign investments. Through automatic route, 100% of FDI is allowed in India. Moving on to the third factor, which is labor availability. Labor is an underlying factor that makes or breaks an industry. India is not only boastful of being the top most populated country, but also the labor is extremely cost competitive as well as well integrated infrastructure and skilled labor force compared to its neighboring countries. Some points in terms of workforce shift is also India is expected to become the world's fastest growing e-commerce market, and there is an increasing participation of women in the workforce. The fourth factor that is really benefiting India is it has the best sourcing utilization. On the supply chain side, there is an abundant availability of raw materials such as cotton, wool, silk, and jute in India. India is the largest raw material base covering all types of natural as well as synthetic fibers, which has helped it to achieve a global stature. It is the largest cotton producer in the world with a share of approximately 27% of the global cotton production. India is also the second largest producer of polyester globally with 8% share. Viscose is also another key textile fiber for which India is the third largest producer in the world. In addition to the traditional natural manufacturing clusters, new virtual clusters are being developed with support from the Indian central and state governments in the form of textile and apparel parks. Till date, the central government has sponsored 66 such parks around states which are at various stages of implementation. The special economic zones is another form of support that aids to the textile and apparel exporters to be globally competitive in India. The Indian central and state governments are also supporting the establishment of centers of excellence, R&D facilities, etc., which are key infrastructure tools for the growth of the textile industry. The last factor that is helping India is the growth of its overall economy. The increase in incomes and preferences for brands, organized retail landscapes, and e-commerce platforms has increased to a large extent. There has been a shift to technical textiles due to the growth of end-user industries such as automotive, healthcare, infrastructure, oil, as well as petroleum. While these factors are helping the textile industry in India grow, there is still quite some scope for growth. The future of the Indian textile industry looks promising, buoyed by strong domestic consumption as well as export demand. India is working on various initiatives to boost its technical textile industry. Top players in the sector are achieving sustainability in their products by manufacturing textiles that use natural recyclable materials only. With consumerism and disposable income on the rise, the retail sector has experienced a rapid growth in the past decade with the entry of several international players like Marks & Spencer's, Guess and Next into the Indian market. The growth in textiles will be driven by growing household income, increased population, increased demand by the sectors like housing, hospitality, healthcare, etc. India has not only seen a growth in the textile and apparel market, but there has been a significant increase even on the demand side. So what are you waiting for? Start sourcing from India today. If you like this video, kindly like, share and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Let's make global trade local.